become more important than ever before. Because only with technology, gamification have come into the learning field such a long way. It's great fun. You don't even know that you are learning. You play while it's being used in one organization. We are using it at a senior level, CFO hiring. And I realized that it's so subtle that even in learning, when we are using gamification, we are teaching much more deeper and written. So as we go along, we'll have more to share with the panel. My take on this subject is that exciting times does not mean that we replicate what is there. Most of the time, there's a tendency that some of these multinational big companies, and I'm part of their products, so I can talk about it, Motorola, Shell, IBM, and Unilever. And ITES companies get much more talked about, much more get reported about. One sector we forget in learning and development many times is the manufacturing sector. Even service gets covered. And I think that's one thing we'll also cover with our panel, that that sector is a backbone of any economy. And are we really doing advanced work, innovative work in that area or not? So with that, may I invite Kavita, would you like to kick off? Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning. Um, Thank you. At least one response. That's nice early in the morning. So, when you look at emerging trends, am I audible at the back? Oh, this is better, yeah. So, when you look at emerging trends in learning, especially at Axis Bank, something that we feel very strongly about is that if you look at the erstwhile training mechanisms that were put in place, they all focused on knowledge and knowing a skill. You had to be a functional expert in doing stuff. Today, very clearly, we are trying to make the shift and move from knowing to doing and building skills. While we are trying to set up a lot of functional academies, setting up skill sets, we're really trying to prepare people to stay relevant for the future for jobs that don't exist today. So we're trying to really create knowledge minds, trying to create people's relevant skill sets for something that we don't know whether it will be there, not there. So we are trying to look at saying, okay, let's look at data analytics. That's the big word today, digitalization, and creating skill sets around that. But we don't know whether those would be relevant or not. Some of the few things that we really focused on, and I'm just going to focus on three things just so that we can keep it crisp. The first is dialogic learning. So while we are very pro digitalization and technology and everything else, and having a lot of blended programs where you have access to the latest content from across the world at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere, in any size, we very strongly believe that conversations is going to be the way to transfer knowledge and for helping people to figure out what is it that they want to do and what is the relevance that they want to build for themselves. So having conversations, creating networks where people can have these conversations in a formal and an informal manner with their peers, with senior leaders. So we started something called the Human Library, where each person is a book and each conversation is something that you can rent out. So we have people who can actually say that they are experts in ABC areas, and you can rent out their time basis, their availability, and have conversations around that space. And we believe that's a very strong way because that's something that people are passionate about. While my role might require me to do LNOD, I might also have functional knowledge in various other areas that I might want to share with people. The second is integration. So integration of learning across the various processes, not just in HR, but also in business. So one very strong initiative that we started off this year is the integration of the learning and the performance management systems. So we actually had merit pools of people, and the better people perform, the more access to better learning interventions that will allow them to not only do their current roles better, but also start getting ready for roles that were at the next level. So you had classroom interventions. We have a collaboration with Coursera, where they have curated content available with inputs from senior leaders. We have social networks that then discuss these modules at a large scale across the organization, and then tie-ups with business schools for the best performers. So if you're a really very good performer at Axis Bank, you would not only get a 2-day classroom intervention from the best B schools in the world like Tuck and Columbia, but you would also have then access to courses that have been curated for you on Coursera, and then go to a premium business school in India for a very, very curated, specialized course that will help you become a better individual and a better leader within the bank. The third is this entire drive on technology. So we do something called the learning binge at least once or twice in a year, where we literally binge on learning. So we have various formats of learning that people are exposed to. The recently concluded one, we did a lot of stuff with our partners Knowlescape, and you'll be hearing from Rajiv also, I'm sure, later in the day, where we looked at showcasing to people how we could use virtual reality, how we could use artificial intelligence, machine learning, gamification. And the response that we got from people was so high. The fact that they were very excited in trying out something new, and the output was immediate. We were very skeptical because we aren't, digitally we aren't very, very sound. We always have we have multi-generations within the organizations. We weren't sure of acceptability. But the fact that we got such a huge response to the learning binge and the facts that, and the various pilots that we ran, it was extremely encouraging. So these were some of the things that we do across the bank just to show some of the emerging trends in learning. So one would be looking at creating multi-generational content across the organization with access not just on an e-learning or an e-platform, but also in a face-to-face format. Creating integrated learning experiences where you don't really have to set time apart for learning, but it's part of your BAU, and you just do it as any other routine, as going and closing a sales call. And the third is the drip feed mechanism, where you have access to content anytime, anywhere, and in any size, as per your comfort and the way that you would like to look at learning. So that's something that I thought I should just share with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. So I'm kind of a fish out of water in this place because I'm not an HR professional to the core. I run business, but as a part of my job, I guess, I got called on here because I guess there's no manager who can't be an HR manager before being a manager now, right? And I guess that doesn't make you guys redundant, but it makes me redundant at some point in time if I'm not who I'm supposed to be. So I run a very young organization. The average age goes down to almost 27, 28, and learning and development is a very cool word with most people who get to 30 or 32 or 35 and are getting seriously serious about their career. Unfortunately, most young people who get into careers and jobs today don't think they really need learning and development. They think that they walked out of B schools, learned everything possible that they could need to learn, and they could probably teach a few people some more tricks. And I come across a lot of young trainees in the orientation sessions, and when you talk to them, the one word that, and maybe it's a harsh word, but the one word that personifies a lot of them is a lot of overconfidence and maybe borderline arrogance. So it's exciting times dealing with anybody who's 23 up to 27 because they do believe that world's really out there waiting for them, which is also the case. And which is why we've tapped into people and changed the entire ecosystem around learning, development, training in the organization. So one of the things that we did some years ago is we broke the classic stereotype of who can be a trainer and who could you learn from. Because the one thing we realized is that it is a fact that some of these young people who do enter the organization are far more adept at many things that the guys who are at 35 plus may not be. And one being technology, right? One being digital, one being technology. So a stereotypical, and don't get me wrong, stereotypical post-corporate life trainer was not some of these young kids were looking for. And they were probably looking for somebody who was a peer or even younger, but was a cutting-edge, innovator, breakthrough kind of personality who could talk to them about things that were happening ahead rather than things that happened behind. And the very traditional classroom sort of training doesn't really interest them. Put 15 kids who are at that age, and I'm calling them kids because I've got to where I've got to, but put 15 kids who are 25, 23, and put them with their mobiles in a conference room together. You think they're going to be interested in the training? the option between the mobile phone and the trainer, what do you think they're going to pick? And within the mobile phone, there is the social network, and then they're very keen to put their picture of the training program on the social network. But I'm not sure how keen they are about what they're really getting trained about. And so we really had to change and deconstruct what training meant for them. One of the things that we actually decided, or decided to look at very deeply, was, can we make this an entire one-on-one buddy mentorship program? It worked tremendously for us. They were willing to learn from somebody who was, their peer, and by their peer I meant somebody who was about 3 or 4 or 5 years into the organization or into the role. And we did this whole buddy program. Everybody who joined the organization had a buddy for the first 6 months. And that actually really helped us get people not only skill sorted, but culturally sorted. Because I think more than skills, which today's young generation does have, it's the culture they don't understand of the organization, or they take time acclimatizing to. And people who've been in the organization help them get there as their mentors, as their trainers. One of the other things that that we decided to do some years ago was to start training before we hired. And that may sound slightly slightly innovative, was because we moved into psychometric based hiring. We knew everybody's strengths, weaknesses, competencies, emotional intelligence, and all of that. And before they came into the organization, we knew what we needed to train them for. And we were hiring them consciously, knowing that we will need to train them on some of the skills that they didn't really have. And that really helped us, look at them very, very differently. Because, increasingly, if you looked at them as people who were ready for their role and then started to put them into a cookie-cutter approach of training, they wouldn't really be interested. But when you put their psychometric tests in front of them and got a buy-in from them on saying, listen, these are the 3 or 4 areas that are weak for you. We're hiring you knowing fully well that you're weak in these areas, and we want a commitment from you that you will go through some of these skill-based, competency-based, psychometric-based, behavioral-based trainings. And at the end of the year, when we do your OPQ, or when we do the psychometric tests again, we want these scores to be going up. We had a far better buying into that training program than just putting them into a classroom, because, like you said, a ladder-based training had to happen for some of them. The other thing that we did realize over a period of time was that we had to start breaking the status quo, right? So when we wanted to get young leaders out there managing teams who were probably older than them, and a lot of the young leaders today do manage teams which are of an average age more than 4 or 5 years older than them. Our youngest leader in the organization is about 31, leads a team of 60 people, all knowledge-based workers, consulting kind of teams in Bombay, in our biggest revenue market. The one thing he clearly lacks, and we needed to buy in from them, is emotional intelligence. Right? Some of the young leaders and their big learning and development need was emotional intelligence. They're very good at what they do in terms of being external. They're very good at what they do in understanding the product, skill, sales skill. But their empathy levels are extremely poor. Right? They do understand that they need to keep people, but they also measure everybody to what they are in terms of effort, in terms of understanding, in terms of learning. And that was one of the biggest challenges that we had over the last few years. And thus came in our entire one-on-one based managerial training program for them. And that, with a buy-in that, listen, you know what, you've got where you've got to, but to stay where you are and go forward, we'll need you to be another person altogether. Not in terms of your skill, but in terms of just your behavior. Got an understanding of them getting deeply vested into their learning and development program. And we used a lot of different tools for that. One of the tools was being consistent with that training program rather than being ad hoc, right? And making people work with people who they thought they looked up to. If you make people work with just anybody and say, oh, he's your trainer, there's a challenge. But you ask him who he thinks is his ideal manager, who he can look up to, who he's willing